Hey, how you doing? Chris Lamort, Associate Professor of Theater, and today we're going to talk about Roman theater, and hopefully we can get this all squared away. We don't know what we're doing. There we go. All right. I'm going to try and keep my vocal interferences down. I'm going to try and keep this under 15 minutes so we can put it up on YouTube so you guys can download it much more easier. At this point, you'll already know if you can or not. Worksheet number 3, we're talking about Roman theater. Concept with this lesson is that the Romans were bloodthirsty, competitive, and the crazy thing about it is they were wonderful engineers, which goes against everything else about being bloodthirsty. And they stole a lot from the Greeks. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. Type of entertainments they had in Rome, in ancient Rome, variety entertainments. Everything from short comic plays, dancing, singing, juggling, tightrope walking, acrobatics, trained animals, gladiatorial events. If you've ever seen the movie Gladiator, where slaves would fight against animals and then against each other to the death. Animal baiting, where they would tease different animals, everything from the Roman Empire. Everything from bears, lions, tigers, bears, oh my, all that stuff. Polar bears, giraffes, rhinoceroses, hippopotamuses. They even filled the Colosseum with water, and they would have mock sea battles and then they would drain it out. Within about 20 minutes, they would flood the Colosseum with water, and then they would drain it out pretty quickly, which is pretty amazing. They were incredible engineers, which is really incredible. The competitive arenas that they used, they had the Colosseum, of course, and then they had the Circus Maximus, and that's where they held chariot races and horse races and stuff like that. But those were the two big ones, the Colosseum and the Circus Maximus. They had festivals to honor gods, and these were called ludi, which means games. And they would put on these festivals just like the Greeks did, but they had longer ones, more of a bacchanalia, and we'll talk about that name as well. They had religious ritual, once again, to honor the gods, and the Romans stole a lot of things from the Greeks. They stole their theater, they stole their gods. They just took the Greek gods and they renamed them. So when you see, it used to be Zeus in Greek mythology, it is now Jupiter. You have Hera, who was Zeus's wife. She was renamed to Juno, and a lot of the other gods were renamed. But they did theater once again to honor the gods. They also took the idea of theater and how should I put this? They took their conventions of theater and they adapted them to their audience's likings. They brought in Greek writers to rewrite some of the Greek tragedies, Greek comedies, and call them Roman. They had theater sponsors as well, just like the Greeks did. And the government also helped finance the theater in Rome. But unlike Greece, the Romans weren't concerned about pleasing the gods all the time. They were more concerned with what the populace, what the people would think about their play. They'd go see the play, the sponsor would go see the play and say, you know what, how does this make me look? Does this make me look good? Does this make me look bad? If it makes them look bad, then they'll have it changed. But the Greeks were more concerned with honoring the gods throughout the process, not so much for the Romans. But you had private sponsors for this public performance. The audience in Rome was free for everyone, and even women were allowed to go to the theater, unlike Greece where they were not. It was just a male exclusive event. In Rome, anyone could go, and they do a nice job of breaking it down. I'm looking for my book. They do a nice job in the Carthaginian. Plautus writes at the beginning, let no worn-out prostitutes sit in the front row. Let worn-out prostitutes. It's actually in the prologue. Also, let soldiers keep their swords down. Slaves cannot save seats. They can't take seats from free men. Let the nursemaids keep their children at home, keep them crying. So this was all different types of people, is my point, attended the Roman theater. Let's see what we got here, because that'll help tremendously. Good. Let's see. Actors. once again, men only. They called them histriones, which looks like the word historian, but it means actor. They were in competition. Whoever the audience thought did the best job, they would receive more money. So once again, Romans were in competition for everything. Gladiatorial events, racing events, mock sea battles, even the theater was a competition. They did wear masks just like the Greeks. They reduced the chorus in size, and the reason they did this is because it put more emphasis on the actor. There used to be more emphasis on the plot, the story as a whole, but the Romans said, you know what, get rid of these 12 to 15 people who are crowding up the stage. Let's put the emphasis on that one character. Let all of that plot and theme come out of this one character, not everyone else telling us how to live our lives. There's no chorus. It's up to the actors to play the part and help get the message across to the audience and help to convey those emotions, because that's what they did. Let's see what we got here. There we go. Plays. Tragedy, as I said, it was just a reworking of the Greek tragedies. But what the Romans did, because they were into the violence, into the gore, they emphasized bolder effects, bigger effects. They had extremes of virtue, of horror, good and bad as well. So the bad was really bad, and the good was very good. They talked also about psychological motivation, focused on why the characters did what they did. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you right now, but you guys are doing great. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Focused on the characters, what they did, and why they did it. Surviving playwrights that we talk about with the Roman era, we're talking about Ovid. He was most known for his poem, The Metamorphosis, but he was also a playwright. Another tragic playwright from Rome is Seneca. Seneca went for the gore. They acted out violent scenes in the play. Of his plays, only 9 have survived, and he rewrote Oedipus Rex. Seneca did, and what he, in his interpretation of Oedipus Rex, Jocasta, Oedipus's wife, takes Oedipus's sword and rips open her womb on stage, and then she kills herself with it instead of hanging herself like Sophocles had. So a lot of people didn't believe that Seneca's plays were supposed to be performed, but it showed the horror of what she did. And the Romans, kind of like what MMA is today, and UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships and stuff like that. You see people, not killing each other, thank God, but back in the day you had wrestling, you had boxing, and now we've gone to this point where we want to see more. We want to see quick fights. We want to see people get knocked down, getting crushed, like in the first 30 seconds of a fight. The Roman theater was like that. They wanted to see gore and violence right there on stage in front of them. Seneca was also an inspiration for Shakespeare and a lot of the Elizabethan playwrights that we'll talk about in a couple of chapters. If you got questions at any point, any time, shoot me an email, give me a phone call, or let me know what's going on, and I'll do my best to answer those questions for you. We're about 9 minutes in, so we're doing all right. Roman comedy. Setting always took place outdoors. It dealt with everyday life. It's not social or political issues. And what the Romans did is they kept the Greek setting because they didn't want to upset the Roman audience, so they kept it in Greece. They stole the Greek plays, the comedies, and they kept the Greek setting to make fun of the Greeks because they didn't want to make fun of themselves, which is kind of funny. Surviving playwrights at this time, we're talking about Plautus. He's a Roman comic playwright, and he is known for his witty dialogue and his distinctive and farcical characters. Also, at this time, Terence is a surviving Roman comedy playwright. And when I say surviving, I mean his plays have survived. Sometimes they get lost. Sometimes, think about something that you had 2,000 years ago. Is it still around today? These stories were passed down from generation to generation and preserved. Terence was known for character and double plots that provided opportunities for showing contrasting behavior. Two of his well-known plays that survive today, The Mother-in-Law and The Brothers. Also Roman comedy, they used stock characters and situations, and kind of like what we have today. Any of your sitcoms that you watch, we understand that, you have the lovers, you have this comedic slave or this clown, and then you have the foolish old man. If you look at any of your sitcoms, they're still like that today. Everybody knew exactly what to expect when they walked into a Roman comedy. Also, because of the situation, also because of the costumes that they wore. Slaves usually wore red. Courtesans usually wore yellow. So people knew that if somebody came out in yellow, they were not to be trusted. They knew that they were an unfaithful person. What else do we have? Minor forms of drama. Mime during this time was not silent, not like the mime that we have today in whiteface and dressed in black. That's not Roman mime. Roman mime was not silent. They had no masks. It was short, topical plays, comic plays, and women, because this is a minor form of theater, women were allowed on stage, and it was similar to the Greek satyr plays. Kind of rambunctious and lewd and crude, I should say. Also, another minor form of theater was pantomime. Pantomime, they did wear a mask, but it had a closed mouth. There was no mouth cut out. There was one person on stage with an athletic body to portray the character and tell the story. They were accompanied by music, and they would dance through the piece. This is pantomime. They had a nice, attractive body. It depended upon athletic gestures, and it was the forerunner of ballet, because that's what we have. It kind of parallels that today. One person, athletic body, they can't talk, and they can just show you what they're going to do and portray the story that way, accompanied by a flautist. And it was the forerunner of ballet. We're about 12 minutes. Yeah, we're pretty good. Theater space, outdoors. It was a freestanding structure. It occurred in the daytime. Roman theater occurred in the daytime because there was no electricity or anything like that with lights, so they used the sun to help illuminate the theater. We have the Scene Franz, and that is the area across the back of the stage, just very similar to the Scene hut. And I guess that's where the Greeks stole. It's where the Romans stole from the Greeks. They stole the Scene hut. And tell you what, I'm going to wrap this up right here because we're about 13 minutes in. It's up on YouTube, and then we'll pick it up right here when we get back.